So tonight's the night that really should make a difference in America in the race for the White House. Earlier, I spoke to the two-time Republican presidential candidate and former Congressman Ron Paul. His son Rand has also been running for the Republican nomination. I began by asking him why he's described Donald Trump as being worse than the party's establishment candidates.
Because he's very, very smart, and he is very efficient, and he's tapped into the problems of this country, but I don't like any of his solutions. So therefore, I see him worse in a perverse sense because of his effectiveness. I think he will be able to do what he wants to do, and from a libertarian viewpoint, he wants to be a boss. And we don't like the idea of people being very effective in telling other people what to do. We'd like to see a government where there was less of that authoritarianism. So in that sense, I think he would be worse than the rest. The others are a little bit more inept in what they're doing, so they would be less successful in running an authoritarian type government.
I mean, he is proposing the biggest tax cut. Like you, he opposed the Iraq War. So it would seem on some fairly major issues, he's pretty close to your position.
Well, I don't think so, because, he was asked about his statement when the war broke out that, go over there and finish it off. Bush 1 didn't do it, so he believed we should go in. And when he was asked about it, he says, that's when I wasn't a politician. So now he's a politician, so he can change his tune. I think that there are times that Sanders speaks better on foreign policy, but he's still not with us on not subsidizing the military-industrial complex. And you take Trump. I mean, he says we got to rebuild our military. We have the strongest military in the history of the world, and nobody's going to attack us. And he's supporting all that spending. We need more money. I'm going to really rebuild our military. That's not very appealing to me when we're a totally bankrupt nation.
What about this idea of building a wall with Mexico and getting the Mexicans to pay for it?
I think it's crazy. And I think walls have been more built to keep people in than to keep people out. So walls aren't very appealing. The fact that there's problems on immigration, you should solve the problems. And I believe our programs subsidize immigration, that people can come if they break the law, they get to be citizens, and they qualify for welfare, and this sort of thing. So if you eliminate that, but if you would also take into consideration that our welfare state contributes to the unemployment, because people who are getting full welfare benefits, they don't increase their benefits if they take a job if it's low paying. So the incentives there aren't to work. And people don't like immigrants because it's an embarrassment to our own policies, because a lot of our own citizens won't work. So I don't think you can solve that problem with a fence. You solve that problem by improving one's own country, having a freer market. If you have a free and prosperous market, there's always a shortage of labor.
You've called Donald Trump authoritarian. Some people in Europe are likening him to Mussolini, particularly after that quote. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I'm not a student of Mussolini. I know what he stood for, and they'd be similar in one way. They're authoritarians, but almost everybody in Washington is authoritarian to some degree. I guess they endorse these viewpoints, but I wouldn't be, I say a lot of negative things about Trump, but I try to explain it in terms of his foreign policy and also his economic policies, but I would never go out and volunteer and say, oh, yeah, they're right, he's Mussolini, he's coming, But I can understand people who might say that because, it's sort of a xenophobia that he's playing on, and who knows what his personal beliefs are, but right now he knows that it's a selling point. He's pretty good at the perceptions of what the American people are thinking, and the American people are very willing to blame somebody else rather than themselves.
What about the other contenders on the Republican side? I mean, you've mostly been a Republican in your career, although you stood for the Libertarians. The two senators, Cruz from your state says he's a Tea Partier, and also, of course, Mr. Rubio from Florida. Do you fancy either of those?
Well, I think, the original modern-day Tea Party was started during one of my presidential races, and it involved, libertarian ideas, but they're not libertarian. The Republican Party and the Tea Party organizations were taken over by Republicans, and most of them are neoconservatives. They're for more war. I mean, Cruz thinks you should carpet bomb everybody that says boo at us, and Cruz and Rubio is very, very solid in the camp of the neoconservatives. He seems to have been the pick and the choice by the establishment Republicans since nobody else is, since the others like Bush and others have faded, they're supporting him. So they don't offer anything whatsoever other than deception, especially Cruz. Cruz says the right things and all, but he's very much of an authoritarian.
So who are you going to vote for today and indeed on November the 8th?
Well, I'll probably vote for Rand Paul. His name is still on the ballot, so I'm not going to waste my vote and vote for somebody that I think are completely off track. So I'll try to make my vote count the best. So I'll vote and make the point that if the conditions would have been different and the coverage a little bit different, maybe the ideas of liberty would have prevailed over the ideas that we need more government. And all the Democrats and all the Republicans, their answers are all with more government and more spending, and of course, from my viewpoint, that's going the wrong direction.
So could you see yourself going for Hillary Clinton, or who knows, perhaps Mayor Bloomberg if he enters the race?
I don't think so. I think they'd be all in the same category because I don't think the Republicans and Democrats, are much different. Their tone is different, but they're essentially the same, and they try to appeal to a base. Like Sanders is maybe a little bit better on foreign policy, but he still is part of the military-industrial complex. Hillary's the same way. She's very solidly in the camp of military intervention. So no matter who wins in this country, believe me, there will be no change in overall policy. I'm convinced.